This is Desert Rose Bahá'í Institute, a not-for-profit center of learning located just outside Eloy, Arizona, in the beautiful Sonoran Desert. Grounded in Baha'i principles, DRBI serves the community through activities and programs that promote artistic, intellectual, agricultural, and other practical education for people of all ages and backgrounds. The Institute was founded by Marguerite Sears, wife of Hand of the Cause of God William Sears, who received the blessing of the Universal House of Justice to develop a school for the arts and agriculture after her husband's passing. Mrs. Sears envisioned the evolution of what had been an annual 3-day Baha'i school into a vibrant campus where people would find growth and spiritual development in a tranquil desert setting. Now, 25 years later, DRBI facilities include a 6,000 square foot meeting hall that accommodates up to 200 people, a smaller in-the-round space for more intimate events, the Casa de Rosa, 16 rental apartments built around a courtyard with a charming central gazebo and peaceful flowing fountains. A 2-wing dormitory accommodates up to 40 people for retreats and youth camps, an art center which will offer classes and gallery space, and KURELP, the DRBI community radio station, which provides a combination of live programming and 24/7 streaming to listeners around the world. There are even swimming pools for cooling off on those hot Arizona days. And then there's the William Sears Pavilion, a stunning spot for quiet prayer and reflection. The unique programming at DRBI includes both on-site and online activities, allowing us to welcome presenters and participants from around the world. 2023 highlights include youth camps, a gospel choir workshop with the renowned Van Gilmer, one-of-a-kind offerings on creativity and resilience, plus a 3-day agricultural conference focused on the critical issue of food insecurity, with guest speakers Paul Hanley, Steve Worth, and Linda Kavlin-Popov, among others. More is in development, including a 12-part intensive course of study on discourse and a week-long arts and music retreat. Coming this fall, DRBI is honored to host Firm Foundations, a 9-day retreat dedicated to the study of the sacred texts. And we're exceptionally proud of the General Alai Agricultural Project, which launched in 2018 and continues to grow under the stewardship of Dwight Cox. And we're exceptionally proud of the General Alai Agricultural Project, which launched in 2018 and continues to grow under the stewardship of Dwight Cox. Dwight was interviewed recently, and we're delighted to share that interview with you here.
So next we're going to watch a little video that was made of an interview with Dwight.
The founders of Desert Rose were two Baha'is, but it was Mr. and Mrs. Sears. They founded it in '97. And it was a farm out in the middle of the desert that was farmed by corporate farming, and individuals got together and they purchased it, and they started the Desert Rose Baha'i Institute. It was a center for arts and agriculture, and that was the vision for it. General Alai was a prominent figure in the Baha'i faith, and some of his descendants actually put up donations in that to help get the farm started. And the board elected to name the agricultural portion of the institute after General Alai. So basically, I grew up on a small farm in Illinois. I was one of 4 boys, and we were surrounded by generational farms, 1,000-acre farms, and we started out to be 160 acres, but my dad sold it all off at 25. He considered himself a country farmer. During the summer, all of the surrounding farms, they had their pick of boys to choose from to help them on the farm, and that was our summer jobs. I actually didn't care too much for farming. I was more interested in working on the equipment. I joke and say that I spent 40 some years getting away from the farm and ended up here at Desert Rose because their agricultural program basically hadn't really started. And I became a board member and realized that we have 20 acres here that we could set up farms. And I asked the board if I could put the infrastructure in for the farms. And so that's how I came to Desert Rose, basically. I consider myself more of an infrastructure man, putting the systems together. I've been in aviation all my life, and there's a lot of complicated systems in aircraft, as you know. So that was my whole thrust, how I thought I could help. And we had some donors come in and get the program started. Well, Desert Rose is in the middle of three towns. And those towns we talk about, you hear a lot about it today, and you're going to hear more about it, is food scarcity. And if we had any type of issue with one store, we would have to travel 20 miles to get any type of food. And with the community surrounded Desert Rose, it's a perfect spot that we could have community gardens. And the vision is to, number one, have small community plots, which you're going to see. And that could be individuals in the community who wants to have their own garden, but don't have the space for it, or nonprofits like food banks and that want to lift people up, show them how to garden themselves, and that they can come out and lease a small patch of land. And we have the infrastructure to support that, to teach them how to use, or we would actually use it for them and start them out on gardening. As an example, we have one gentleman who is working with a nonprofit in Haiti, and he has leased the first plot. He started out with just 1,000 square feet. I think he's up to about 4,000 square feet, and he plans to expand it to 9,000 square feet. And they run a school in Haiti called the Barefoot School. So that's pretty interesting. That was kind of the proof of concept for us. The farming methods that we've been incorporated in the United States and in a lot of places around the world basically is row crops. And in this area, they use a lot of artificial fertilizers, and they'll flood, irrigate. It's through the canal system that's been around since the Hohokam Indians. And the problem with that is it will actually draw up the salts from the earth. They will till land until they can't harvest it anymore, or they get real low yields, and then they'll move on. We have a system set up that we make our own soil. And as you'll see, we have piles of debris that we harvested from the main campus, and we will take that and turn it into soil. At the same time, because we're in the desert and water conservation is very important, we've took a method that's used over in Europe called hugelkultur, and we will build mounds. We'll dig holes in the ground, trenches basically, and we will fill them with trees, shrubbery that we get, and then cover them. And basically, because we have 2 rainy seasons, we only get 12 inches of rain a year, 6 in each season. And that becomes a battery, if you would say. It absorbs the water into the trees, and it will slowly give off nutrients and moisture for the surrounding area. We plant trees on the ogle mounds, and if you'll notice around the campus that we have some trees that are 20 years old and haven't received any water, but yet they're flourishing. I mentioned before that we make our own soil. We have other amendments that we do. We also make biochar and process that pretty interesting process and how it came about. It basically is so porous that it will absorb in nutrients and water, and actually the plants will feed off of this. The other condiments that we'll use is called compost tea, and we make that here as the video will show you. Basically, it's made up of worm castings, alfalfa, some molasses, and it puts nitrogen into the soil, brings the soil and plants back to life, and it's really working out for us, as you'll see. I went to back in 19 started a course by Jeff Lawton, permaculture. And Jeff Lawton got his start from Bill Mollison, who's kind of considered the father of permaculture. In communities like this, small communities, you can grow, whether it's in your backyard, on a community lot. You can start this and you can grow your own vegetables, but you got to get them to market. And in our environment here, the farmers market that are on the weekends. Well, if you're harvesting your crops on Monday, you have a lot of spoiled crops. And so what we're in the process of doing to mitigate that is to build coolers. And because we're out here, we don't have electricity to the farm. We depend on solar power. And as you'll see in the video, we have solar power to run our pumps for our water systems. And basically, we'll have solar power for our coolers. And the coolers will allow the vegetables to rest, if you would say, up until the weekend. And because of our partnership that we have with Black Orchard Farms, they come out and will do the market for us. So future plans, you saw out there that we had the 2 containers. One is, of course, for the cooler, and the other one is going to be our grow for the mushrooms. And you saw the video of the pond, and that's going to be our learning system of aquaponics. And we'll have floating aquaponics. We also have tilapia in the pond right now. Those are going to be the future add-ons, additions that we have. We're also putting in some people are calling it a Zen garden, some are calling it a meditation garden, but basically raising flowers, hibiscus, a nice type of meandering walkway with benches and that people can come from the memorial gardens and actually sit there in an area part of the farm. I think for anyone that wants to get started in farming, whether they are doing it in their backyard or what. There's so many references on the internet, YouTube videos. I would search permaculture, and Jeff Lawton is a good source. If you will just type in "greeting the desert," his name will come up, and watch the videos and watch the different villages in the Middle East, what they're doing, individuals in those villages. It's incredible, and it's really inspired us here too. I think that um, the future of farming will change in our lifetime drastically. Community gardens will be in the actual city, downtown, if you would say, area, a gathering place for the people. I see it as a sense of community, and really the stakeholder in the whole community will be the farmer.
Oh, thank you, Dwight.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I have to give a shout out to Mr. Ken Ward. Ken, who's with us today, he actually was one of the first Baha'is that came out to Desert Rose and started with a small plot. And him and I going back and forth, actually, what you're seeing is a big part of Ken and I's discussion together. So I just wanted to give that a shout out to Ken.
Thank you. So at this point, if anyone has any questions, if you could raise your hand. If you know how to raise your hand. If you don't know how to raise your hand, it's with the raise your hand symbol up in the corner of your box where your picture is. Up in the right hand corner, there are 3 dots, and in there, let's see, is that may not allow me to do that. You should have a place to raise your hand, or in reactions, if you go to the bottom of the screen under reactions, you can raise your hand. All right, let's start with Fred.
Great presentation, and thank you very much. It's the first time I hear about the Desert Rose Bahá'í Institute, and I'm so happy that this program has been arranged so that we know more. A lot of work has been done, and I'm going to look for events that probably will be shown on their website. And my question is, are you considering to have livestock operation in this facility? I learned that about doing crops and other things. This is one question, and probably later if some other topics comes.
It doesn't show in the video, but we are surrounded by solar farms. It's pretty interesting. And if I understand the question correctly, you're asking about livestock. Would we have livestock? Is that correct, or did I misunderstand?
That's correct. Considering to add to your operation livestock or any poultry or any other types of
Yes,
have
we do.
market in your area, I don't know.
Yes, we do have, we tried with the commercial farmer that was mentioned in the video to have poultry. And the gentleman just kind of went overboard. They were overcrowded. We weren't happy with the way he was taking care of. So we kind of put that on hold. But we do have a portable chicken coop that we're trying to get different people interested in taking care of the chickens for the eggs. And we will actually move that around the farm. And of course, the fertilizer, the benefits from it is incredible. But as I was saying, we're surrounded by solar farms, and what they do, it's very interesting. They lease sheep to come in and take care of the weed controls. And I'm looking into also doing that at Desert Rose on the farm. And of course, you know, you have to have the proper fencing to keep them out of the gardens and that, but in the surrounding area, that's very, very interesting. And they are doing that across the world, of course, but in Africa, and they're finding out that hoofed animals and their droppings is actually regenerates the soil. So yes, we are looking into that.
Great, thank you. Stephen.
Hello, my name is Stephen Sapir from Inglewood, California. And I have been following, I have been interested in alternate forms of agriculture, such as permaculture, aquaculture, and such. And so I was very interested in seeing it put into practice. I have a few questions about the scale at which you are putting into practice these various types of these various methods. How much land are you dedicating to the aquaculture? And how would you break down the area that you're using for the different methods? Also, how long have you been doing this? I don't know how long ago the video was made. What have been your results? And third, what is your what is your vision of what you intend to do with these experiments? Are you planning to use this commercially, sell it locally, sell the products locally? What are your products? I don't know how far along in the process you've gone, but if you're just starting, what is your vision for the yield and what you intend to do with that? Or is it just a proof of concept, purely experimental, just trying to find out what's possible right now? Thank you.
Sure, thank you for that. The video was made this year, okay? So what you're seeing is a result of us starting in 2018. Now, granted, COVID set us back for a couple of years. And the fact that I'm doing this basically by myself, it's a slow process. Mm-hmm. And we are looking at, you talked the video, if you look at the last slide, I guess, or the last shot of the video, that's what we started with. And we're unique here in the desert because we have water rights. Now, I'm sure California has water rights also. We only have 7 acres or it's 7 to 10 acres that we're allowed to draw water from. The other 10 acres, we have a well, but that well is providing the whole facility with their water. So we had to be very careful there. We don't want to stress that well. And we're looking and negotiating to put in another well because we actually had 2 wells on Desert Rose and one turned to salt. So we found a new source very close to the farm, and we're hoping that this coming year or next year, we'll be able to tap into that and dig a well. So going back, I lease 5 acres right now to a produce farmer. And he has helped us develop the land. And he has all the market outlets for Phoenix. So what he grows, he basically sells on the market, and he gives a small percentage to Desert Rose. Plus, we have a lease with him. And he was doing fantastic. COVID hit. He was looking at other means of revenue, such as a store. And he's in the process of coming back to us and producing that whole 7 acres. So that's the commercial side, or I'm sorry, the whole 5 acres. Now, going back to the Desert Rose side, the concept was that we would have individual plots around 3,000 square feet. And we would contact the communities, let's say the boys club or the pantry, the food pantries at our town, and saying, hey, would your people be interested in having their own plot? Maybe the food pantry would be interested in doing that, so they would have fresh vegetables. And they would provide the workers, we provide the know-how and the tools. And that's the concept that I was going for. We could take 10 acres and actually divide it into 3,000 to 4,000 square feet or foot plots. And believe it or not, that's a big area. You can have a lot of produce from that. So that was the concept that we were going for. And we had a gentleman to step up and says, hey, I got a school in Haiti, and I think if I have 3,000 to 5,000 feet, I could fund that. And so we invited him on. We work with him every day. And he's actually, everything that he sells is convenient because he sells it to the commercial farm right on our property. So he doesn't have transportation costs, this and that. So, you know, we would love to get something other, say the boys clubs or our different church organization that are doing something for the community. That's what we're inspired to do. I hope that I answered everything.
Yes, thank you. That's fascinating, this project that you're working on. Be very interested in following along how this develops.
Yeah, thank you. Winona Smith?
Hi.
Winona?
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm trying to make this work. So my interest is, I live in Tucson. One of the things I would like to see is farming in the city for a specific community, like the community I live in, Sugar Hill. I would like to start something in my backyard and then be able to share it with neighbors and then help them grow things in their backyards. I've seen programs where people, like one neighbor will plant one thing, another neighbor will plant a different thing. And then people can just share those things. It's not necessarily for profit or anything, but just to supplement the community. And so it's a ways to go to be at Desert Rose, but it sounds like you periodically have programs where people could go to learn about different things. Like one of the things I'm interested in is the aquaponics, and how do you manage that? I have seen where utilizing fish, and I heard you say tilapia, would help also with the keeping the water clean. So, I don't know if it would just be information I would get from you, like places to look, or how do you help people that are just interested in helping their own little community set up small plots in their backyards?
That's, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I was just saying, I'm really interested in doing things like that.
When we started investigating, when the board actually started investigating the aquaculture program, we had different board members that signed up, and we're so lucky because Tucson, we have the University of Arizona, and they offer so many free classes, aquaponics, and a lot of people, at least I didn't know this, but the gentleman, the professor of the aquaponics program, he's a very funny guy. When you walk into his class, he said, I just want you to know, outside of the campus, I'm known as a rock star. And, the class got a big laugh out of that because he didn't look like a rock star. But he held up a book and he said, this is my book. I wrote this book, and it's used all over the world for aquaponics. So that immediately got everyone's attention. And the assistant professors and that, they actually invite you to their home, the class, and they have small aquaponic systems set up in the yard. There's so much information on that, you can even glean it from the internet. But the point is, I did not realize the resources that we have here in the desert. This gentleman actually goes around the world and gives classes, and his textbook is used all over the world, in the Middle East, everywhere. And another gentleman, and I'm sorry, I can't think of his name, but he's one of the foremost advocators, knowledgeable guy on water conservation, and taking our home and turn it into a watershed that you can have your own water supplies just from the street corner. In fact, through his lobbying, he's actually waking up the state construction overseers, if you would say, for permits that allows you to use your gray water in your home. And he's changing the laws here in Arizona on what we can do to conserve water. That is, yes, and I see a note here, Burt Lancaster, that's true. If you would Google him, it's just very interesting. And he lives in Tucson also. So we're very fortunate to have these resources.
Thank you.
Right, thanks. I think Jean had something to say. Jean?
Yeah,
Jean,
thanks,
also
Dawn.
from Desert Rose Bahá'í Institute, everyone.
I'm actually the learning coordinator at Desert Rose, and I had a couple of things to mention. One is that we have ongoing learning programs on all sorts of topics. Among them, of course, the arts and agriculture, because that's our mission. And so people who want to get on our mailing list, for those, I'm going to put the my email address in the chat, and they can write to me, and I'll make sure that you get on the mailing list. We are going to have more programs and conferences on food security. The conference in April was extremely successful. We were so pleased with the quality of the event that we're going to have more of those. And we are always looking for suggestions for programs to have as well. So people who have suggestions can let us know. And one of the other applications of the agriculture program that were very early stages of investigating and in discussions with is
Oh, I think we lost Jean a second there.
hello,
Yeah, we lost you a minute there.
hello,
Hello?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know where you lost.
Yeah,
So,
we lost you for a minute there. So you may want
okay,
to backtrack just a bit.
okay, sorry.
You had said the most important, exciting thing you're looking forward to, and then it dropped.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Anyway, now I'm getting feedback. So we're I don't know where I left off. Anyway, we are going to have more food security events, and one of the things that we're working with in the very early stages of discussions is with a military veterans group, where the agriculture program activities would be part of a set of therapies that they have as a part of their reintegration and
I think we lost Jean again. I don't know, Dwight, could you elaborate on that at all?
Honestly, this is something that Kelly and Jean have been doing,
Oh, okay.
but it has to do with more seminars around. They have contacted or working with a veterans group. And the veterans group are very interested in and joining with us for rehabilitation type of work, to sending their people up here and work on the farm. Now that program, these two ladies, and I take my hat off to them, they will be getting more involved in this as the weather gets cooler, because right now at 108 degrees, no one's going to be coming here to work. Right. But yes, that's what I knew of that program, and I'm very excited to work with these guys.
Can you hear me now? Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay.
Are you there, Jean?
You just froze up again.
I give up. It's okay.
Maybe.
Never mind.
Okay. Well, maybe we should just go on. Christine.
Well, I want to thank you for a wonderful presentation. And I think what you are doing, your knowledge and your experience, Dwight, is so valuable for the world, and it needs to be shared. I serve as the secretary of the Baha'i-inspired International Environment Forum, and we are collecting all kinds of information to be shared that can be useful to for the well-being of humanity. But especially two areas are of interest here. One is case studies, like I was not aware what wonderful things you're doing. So is there a way you could write this up and send it to us, and we can publish it as a case study so others can be inspired and follow your footsteps? So just general information, like the big picture, what you're doing. And then we are also interested in disseminating practical knowledge, because all over the world, you know, in African countries and other South American countries, everywhere, and even in the United States, everywhere, people need that knowledge for basic agricultural techniques, especially low-tech practices that can be applied by everyone. So would it be possible for you or for someone you know to write up like what you are doing with aquaponics or with the compost tea, but different things, like one article just about how to do compost tea, why you do this, what it's good for, and the recipe, you know, or the rest. There are many ways of doing compost teas, of course, but
Right.
so that this knowledge can be disseminated and other people can use it. And I will put the email address and the website of the International Environment Forum into the chat, in case you have the time to write something up.
You know, that's interesting because when you talk about experiments, and I have to go back to Ken Ward. When Ken came out here, he was very instrumental. In fact, he was trying to get the residents at that time to have little individual gardens. And the feedback was, well, I don't know. And, you know, I can imagine kids saying, well, let's experiment. And you would see, and I remember going by his little casa, and he had a small garden there, and then someone else down a few casas down, you know, they had their small article or garden. But these things can be written up, and I gotta tell you, I go back to tell everyone at Desert Rose, hey, I'm an infrastructure guy. I'm going to put in the systems that you need to make it grow. Do I know if that's an eggplant or some other type of eggplant? I won't know until it fruits. Okay. So that's my, you know, farming background was soybeans, wheat, and corn. That's what you did in the Midwest. And out here, it's not even that. It's cotton, clover, and sorghum. So, you know, these things can be written down, and it's a matter of just having support, people that would help you do that. But yes, it is possible to do it. And one thing that Jean and Kelly are pushing, we made one video and it seemed like it was well received, and now everybody wants a bunch of different videos. So these things can be released, like what Jean was talking about, you know, with working with the veterans and that, and actually filming it and say, hey, this is how we do our composting, you know, our different, whatever we're doing at the farm at the time. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Yes, in the chat, we have someone who says, it's Sahar Tai Seal says, if you need help with those guides, I do that. So we have a
All right.
I'll reach out. Thank you.
Yes. Right. We all have different skills, right? And I'm sure you're just overwhelmed. It's such a huge project you're working on there. I can't imagine that you have lots of time for writing, Dwight. It would be great to have someone accompany you with it. That's great. Thank you. Okay.
No, thank you all.
Yeah. Yeah, these are very important things that, you know, would be a benefit for other people to know, and to have people who would assist with that is a great thing. Joe.
I must confess that I had this impression of Desert Rose as a retreat center for affluent Baha'is in California. And this is really nice to know that it's a much more richer place in terms of what the programming and activity. So I'm very pleased to be sitting here listening to this. And I had a few thoughts. In March, we had the workshop had a report from a farm in Mali that's operated Baha'is, and they were using something called root zone bioresponsive irrigation. So I was wondering, Boyd, if that was on your radar, where they put some kind of the irrigation method is buried about 40 inches into the ground, and the water is released in response to the plants, which is much more effective and efficient than, say, drip agriculture. So that's one thing I was wondering about. And I don't know how far you are from Phoenix in terms of like finding, say, youth interns in the urban area that might be interested in learning farming stuff that they could take back for doing urban farming, since it sounds like this is potentially a learning operation and an operation to experiment with new methods. And the other thing I was thinking in terms of permaculture is looking at indigenous food plant materials and working, say, with if there's any local tribal groups in your area. One of the reading groups for the agriculture section was reading Eating the Landscape, which was about looking at cultural foodways in the American Southwest and the northwestern part of Mexico. And so I'm thinking, a lot of times we look at permaculture as like the spiral thing that they started with mollusk and more in wetter areas, but really, permaculture is being a kind of developing a sustainable food producing ecosystem. If you were doing that in Arizona, you would probably have to figure out how to do that without irrigation in order for it to be sustainable. So I'm thinking there's a lot of probably food knowledge is slowly being lost by indigenous cultures in your area that could be plugged into. And then I really applaud using port therapy with the veterans. Those are my crossed my mind as I was listening to these presentations, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting because if you read some of the reports about the early Europeans described the Hohokam Indians, they were just very healthy looking, attractive people, and they were surprised that most of their agricultural techniques. In fact, the canals all through the Salt River Project and that, they were done by the original footprint was done by the Hohokam Indians. And of course, engineers came in and followed them and made them concrete. And that's where we have our canal system. Going back to that water side, I got to tell you, I don't know if this will answer your question, but when we first started, we didn't have water out to the farm area. And we would take a little water buffalo, 350 gallon, and pull it behind a side by side and do the top watering of the plants. And our first year, what yielded, not that we had a lot of harvest, but we had all kinds of weeds. And when we started looking at it, we were getting salts that would come up. And so you look at the ground, the surrounding area, this at one time was all ocean. And we have so much salt in the land. And when you add water on top of it, it will evaporate and leave salt residue. So we were looking, is this a problem? And we realized that the only way that we could do it is through drip irrigation. And right now we had we've always had problems with critters. So we're in the process, and we do have some there, but we make predator poles and very high, if you say, attack points for the birds of prey. And that's helped us out a lot. Going to the irrigation again, you know, that is a method of burying the irrigation into the ground, but we haven't looked into that yet. Just because of the manpower, probably.
Thank you. Winnie?
Yes, it's obvious that you're headed toward community collaborations, like with the veterans group, and you mentioned you hope sometime to get boys groups. I wondered what feedback do you get from the 3 surrounding towns, and do they do anything in their media to talk about you? And Joe mentioned the indigenous peoples. Is there a chance that they come and tell you their experiences or would do so?
You know, I have heard of people in the community that have contacted different groups. We're so small. And there's not that many of us that are actually working in this. So we've never been to the point of reaching out, but I think we're over that threshold now. I think you'll see more of that. But right now, there's only been a few incidents and very close towns to us. Casa Grande is one of them. They have a gardening community up there, and they've been out, they've donated a tree, in the early stages and that, but we don't have it on a regular basis. But that's something that we will.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yes, thank you so much for letting me ask another question. I just want to, I would like to reiterate what the earlier person who asked the question, I forget her name, Christine, said, that the incredible value that you are bringing to the public because you are embarking on this very out of the mainstream experiment enterprise journey with a small group of people with limited resources. This is incredibly valuable, and this is this is of great interest to many people. They might not be in your area, but by reaching out, especially on social media, where you can reach a huge, you're reaching the world. Look at how many people are joining this video presentation that you're making right now. And among the participants, there's so many. One person said, I want to do something in my backyard. Imagine how many other people who have not raised their hand who are thinking of the same thing. Your experience with your limited resources, trying something on a small scale or whatever scale that you're doing it, is inspirational. And if you could share, find some way, you don't have to document formally, although some kind of formal documentation would also be very useful as well. But just bringing us along and sharing the details of your challenges, your successes, how well you're doing, what types of things, the different, whether it's aquaponics or permaculture, this would be of great interest to so many people to share in, maybe not in the technical details, but sharing the details of how this is working for you. And especially since, as you say, you're somebody who does not come from with agricultural expertise per se. You're kind of somewhat of an outsider. I think that's what many people are coming from themselves. They want to experiment and try to get into this type of alternative agricultural, small scale. So you sharing your experience in somewhat more detail, I think would be of great value.
Thank you for that. Jean, did you get all that? I think that's.
Oh, absolutely, every word.
Okay.
What I would say
think,
is it's good that we have a recording that's being made.
yeah, I think that that's something that is possible and that we can do that.
Right. Jean, is there anything, I know you got cut off for a while there. Is there anything that you wanted to add at this point?
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm really sorry about that.
No.
I don't think so, except that the agriculture program has all sorts of potential to inform and to leverage participation in both the local and the global community in so many ways, as a laboratory, as an experiment, you know, and people who are undergoing all kinds of other processes in their lives. So certainly growing things in agriculture is important, and that's the primary reason. But there are all sorts of applications in other areas as well.
Yes, thank you. Fred, I think we're going to skip you for now, and we'll come back to you.
Sure.
We have a couple of people who haven't spoken yet.
Sure.
We'll come back to you then. Wanjiku?
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And I wanted to ask how you manage your human resources. Is it by employment, or do you invite volunteers, and what are the ages? Is the youth and or the like? That's my question.
Okay, and I apologize. You broke up just a little bit for me. Can you just repeat your question again?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was asking how you manage your human resources. Is it by volunteers? Do you get volunteers, and what are the ages? So mostly is by you employ people to work on the farm.
Got you. No, thank you. That's interesting because as I mentioned earlier, we lease some of the property, and the farmer who is taking care of that, he's very interested in what we're doing. And sometimes he will loan me his worker who he actually pays. And the other resource I have is that I have a company where some of my employees, and unfortunately they're not volunteer, they're paid, so we use them. And beside myself and the gentleman who is running the school in Haiti, we're the two main active persons that are there full time. And again, unfortunately, he broke his femur back in December, so he's been hobbling around. You saw him in the video with a cane. So right now, human resources are kind of few and far between, or else we would have the desert blooming.
Yes. Sahar, Thai Seal.
Hey there. Hey, so I'm wrapping up this degree I started up at Davis, at Bosch, actually, about agriculture and like Baha'i art, because we were also trying to move away from this kind of what had sort of become this retreat center energy for for Bosch, which we wanted to like work to help open it up to the community. So and I was working in the orchards there, trying to MacGyver bring the community, bring lots of people into this place so we can learn about the Baha'i writings on agriculture for community, et cetera. Bosch wouldn't let me stay there because I was single and it's kind of remote. They're like, go to school. And I'm like, all right, I'll go to school. So I did that. And I'm almost done this month. And I noticed that that if you guys are looking for more people to like volunteer or work or contribute in some way, I noticed there's like a volunteers welcome post on your website. Since we're, you know, here on the call, I just wanted to say if there's, I understand there's like probably a need for on-site resources that are of a certain type. And I don't know, I guess that's kind of my state, but I'm writing programs on like labor, food justice, wellness, and soil management for like kind of the working at like the hey call, the human symbol up to the 7-point star of like the Cherokee and indigenous prophecies of like the rainbow people, and then the 9-pointed star. So if there's any, is there like receptivity for like programs?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yes, we should talk. Would you
Okay,
send me your email address? And Dwight and I can get in touch with you.
Yes. That'd be great.
Right, Dwight?
Yeah.
Yes.
Super.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Sue?
Yes, and thank you. I also want to thank you for putting on this very wonderful presentation. And Dwight, I want to get on with your Jeff Lawton permaculture recent background. Have you considered or have you thought of offering classes for teaching permaculture on Desert Rose?
No, that's something that we would do as far as seminars. If we would have like a week available during the winter that we could have people to come to Desert Rose and actually rent out the facility, and we put up a course on permaculture and that. The course that I took, it was right at the start of COVID, and it was only supposed to be 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, and it got dragged out to way over a year and a half. And there's a lot of courses that are available in the States that you take over the internet, and they're based off of Mr. Mollison's permaculture. And it, like I said, he's really considered the father of permaculture. So, something could be put together and to give a week, but that's something that we would have to work on and decide to do that.
Great.
I think that is that would be a warranted pursuit. And especially because I think that in that process, you would also be garnering options for volunteers and human resources.
Right.
In that process. So I would think that that's something to seriously consider as for consultation. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thanks. Neil.
Okay. Thank you so much. These sessions are always so informative. And so I'd like to, just as a journalist, I just like to ask one overall question for Dwight, but I'd also like to respond to Sahar's intervention, because Sahar was like a breath of fresh air, mainly because she is so enthusiastic and young. And it's so important for our group, our agricultural working group. We are all in our 70s and even higher. No, we're not all. I think we've got Rosemary has joined. It's so important. We really, we've got Alberta, who is in Alberta, and she's very young. But what we are dearly lacking is simply this vision of someone from your generation, Sahar. And I think your passion for the environment, for being actively involved, and your fearlessness is what. So I hope that our working group will reach out to you so that you can actually share a little bit more with the working group after, down the line. So just coming back to Desert Rose, I would just like to know the governance structure, the financial structure, and the size, the acreage.
I can give you information about that. When it started, it was 160 acres. And, when the different land grants that was given by the government, that's how they basically quartered the lands here in the West. So it started out as 160 acres.
Called a quarter section.
Yes.
Quarter of a square mile. Yeah.
So I think that's was a standard out here. That's what I've ran across anyway. And we sold off, not we, but previous people sold off until we're down to about 40 acres. And some of the land went to the Baha'is, people that were helping build Desert Rose, and some of it was sold to other Baha'is that just wanted to help Desert Rose. And that's what we're remaining with right now. The financial structure, we're always on a shoestring budget, if you would say. The resources are very limited. We're always looking for donations, but we compete with a lot of Baha'i institutions, and that we're not an institution. We're Baha'i like-minded people that have came together to promote the arts and agriculture. So, and right now, the well that I talked about that we want to build, where we in order to do that, that's quite a lump sum of money. So we rely on getting the information out, and hopefully the people will start donating to the agricultural project as they do to the arts project. And so that's what we rely on. I've taken this because I could do it and get us to where we are right now, and even build it a little bit more. I want to get the cooler built this year, and the grow house for the mushrooms, and these in itself will produce revenue.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat here from Christine, who says, would it be possible that the educational programs offered at Desert Rose would regularly include service in agriculture?
That's a Jean question.
Yeah, and then there, of course, like I know at other Baha'i schools and institutions, they're like work study programs and things like that.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Before I start, I just want to make sure I'm
Yes.
actually connected. So we are certainly open and receptive to any of those possibilities. And I would say that if someone has something in mind, please do give us a shout on the email that I put in the chat. Again, it's desertroselearn@gmail.com. And I can put you in touch with the people who would, depending on the question or the proposal. Obviously, everything goes to the board. eventually, but as far as preliminary discussions, I can put you in touch with the correct people, whether it's me or Kelly Haddon or Chad Jones or Dwight or any number of other people who could answer questions and assist in putting together a proposal for activities. So the answer is yes, they can include that, and they sometimes do include that. And so we're interested in hearing from you about what you are thinking about. And actually, to add on to what Dwight was saying, Desert Rose is a 501c3, so it's not a nonprofit corporation. That's the tax structure.
Thank you. Fred.
I would like to thank again Mr. Cox and all others who helped the operation of the Institute. It was really excellent program and very educative that we learn about the existence and operation. I know that the Institute objectives, although the economic aspect is important, but probably it is beyond the economic, but as a Baha'i Institute, I would like also, as Mr. Cox referred to it, outreach to inform youth and ag students and professionals in agriculture to become informed and or volunteers to come to the Institute. And in this way, we all will understand the importance of the statement of special regard to agriculture. And this institute could explain how agriculture could reach this importance statement and do it the way that it should be. At the present, agriculture sector is lower return economically, is the 6%, which is lower aspect of other aspects of the industry and economy. But this could become somehow an example to improve this and change it. And that's, I suggest even at the conference, the existence of the Institute to be brought to the attention of participants, and maybe in American Baha'i also, something to be written about the existence of the Institute and its importance and objectives. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. We're getting close to our time here. I just want to thank everyone for participating. Are there any last comments before we go? I know someone asked about the chat. If you'd like to download the chat, you can download it yourself. If you go down to where you write a message, there are 3 little dots. And in those 3, if you click on that, it will say save chat, and you can save the chat to your desktop or your computer.
I do have one question.
Sure.
How close are you to NABI, the Native American Baha'i Institute?
Question.
It's quite some distance. Arizona is a big state, as you know. And so it's about 7 or 8 hours, I guess, by road to go there. And that's in the dry season. So we do have occasionally discussions with them, but at the moment we are not actively in a collaboration with them.
Joe, did you have?
I was thinking that one of our previous sessions and with the workshop with Brandy, who's involved with or founding member of an eco village in British Columbia, and they do offer a permaculture design, what do they call it, certification course. But of course, the climate and geography there is different than Arizona. So you probably want to find a partner with, if there's like a permaculture group for your part of Arizona, you could probably partner to have classes offered at Desert Rose for permaculture certification. Or just without certification, just get the principles across and see how they would apply to the indigenous landscape in Arizona.
Sure.
And if you're 501c3, there's probably compatible grants that you could get without, you know, within the context of being a Baha'i inspired entity.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're just about at time now, folks, and we appreciate you all attending today.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. It was a
Yes. Thank you
pleasure.
so much, Dwight.
Thank you,
Really
everyone,
you,
for
Dwight.
wonderful.
all the suggestions and input.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
All
And
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.